Hello, everybody, and welcome to more Political Excess. Today, let's do another hypothetical 2024 presidential matchup. This is a crazy one, but let's try Liz Cheney for the Democrats and Tulsi Gabbard for the Republicans. Tulsi Gabbard recently announced she's leaving the Democratic Party, so let's try to do this in this hypothetical and see where these states land. It's going to be crazy. You're going to disagree on 3 or 4 of these. It's very hard to predict. This kind of scrambles the map a little bit. But let's get into this anyway. Safe states over a 10-point margin, likely 5 to 10 points, lean under 5 points, and tilt 1 point or less. So the way I see this going is Liz Cheney would probably really only draw a lot of support from the anti-Trump crowd, and she would not retain many of the traditional Republican voters. Some, but not a lot. And with Trump not on the ballot and Liz Cheney being the candidate for the Democrats, a lot of those people are going to suddenly realize they actually don't really like Liz Cheney all that much, and she's not going to do that well in most of these states. Some voters might not be sold on Tulsi Gabbard as she was recently a Democrat, so they might be a little hesitant in some parts of the country, but that's how I see this playing out. So let's jump into this and start in Alaska. That will be a safe for Tulsi Gabbard. Liz Cheney is too pro-war for a lot of these states, and Alaska is moderately red, and I could see them supporting someone like Tulsi Gabbard. It wouldn't be way over 10 points, but it would be into double digits. How about in Hawaii? That's where Tulsi Gabbard represented in the U.S. House. But now that she no longer identifies as a Democrat, I don't think they would suddenly support her. I think the margin would be greatly reduced. I don't think Liz Cheney would win by 40 points or anything, but she would still win that over 10. How about back up to Washington? Again, I think the margin would for sure be reduced for Liz Cheney, but she would just barely eclipse 10 points. How about in Oregon? I think Liz Cheney would win that, but probably under 10 points, high single digits. It's just too blue of a state, along with Washington, to really make it truly competitive, even in this crazy scenario. California, it's going to have to stay safe for the Democrats. It's weird to picture these people voting for Liz Cheney, but I think the D after her name in this hypothetical would be enough to keep it over 10. Idaho, that's going to stay safe for the Republican Tulsi Gabbard this time. And in some of these red states, the margin actually could be reduced as well, as some of these voters sit home. They're not sure who to vote for, given the parties are kind of scrambled. But I still think Gabbard wins by over 10 in Idaho. Nevada, that'll be a likely for Tulsi Gabbard, the Republican. Again, I don't think Liz Cheney has much appeal if it's her against Gabbard. Most of the Cheney voters are going to find a lack of purpose with Trump not really on the ballot. And with Gabbard pointing out some of these excesses of the Democrats, I think that would appeal to a lot of these voters, and Gabbard would win that by about 5 to 7 points. Utah would be a likely for Tulsi Gabbard. That's a state where I think Liz Cheney would have a little bit more appeal. It could get down to 9 points. Again, it's hard to predict. I could be wrong on some of these, but let's go down to Arizona. That'll be a likely for Gabbard. Again, Liz Cheney, as a Democrat, is not going to have much momentum going up against Gabbard. Montana and Wyoming, safe for Gabbard. Colorado, I'm actually going to put this as lean for Tulsi Gabbard. I think Cheney would fall flat in a lot of these areas, especially if she only runs on defending democracy. I think that's going to really fizzle out. And Tulsi Gabbard touting anti-war stuff, criticizing the Democrats, that's going to be refreshing in a state like Colorado, and I could see her carrying that by 1 to 2 points. New Mexico, that is a tilt for Gabbard. It is kind of a blue state. Not sure which way it would go, but I'm going to give it to Gabbard very narrowly. North and South Dakota, safe for Gabbard. Nebraska at large, safe for Gabbard. In that second district with Omaha, there'll be a lean for Gabbard. Kansas and Oklahoma, safe for Gabbard. Texas, I think, actually would be safe for Gabbard. The traditional Democrat strongholds in Texas, but they're not going to come out enthusiastically for someone like Cheney, and those margins are going to be reduced. And Gabbard, she's got a different message. She's going to get it over 10 in Texas. How about in Minnesota? Minnesota is always a weird state. Seems to always go blue. I'm not sure on this. I'm going to just put it at tilt for Liz Cheney. Iowa, Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, those will all be safe for Tulsi Gabbard. In some of these southern states, I do think Liz Cheney would have a little bit more appeal. They're going to be a little more hesitant for someone like Tulsi Gabbard, who was a Democrat not that long ago. She ran for president as a Democrat. This wasn't 10 years ago or anything, so I think some of these margins in these deep red states are going to be a little reduced, and they would find someone like Liz Cheney a little more comforting to someone they're familiar with. but I still think Gabbard would win. Let's go up to Wisconsin. That'll be a likely for Tulsi Gabbard. I think Liz Cheney's going to fall flat here in the Rust Belt, and Gabbard's going to win that by 5, 6 points, maybe even 7 or 8. Illinois, that I actually have as a lean for Tulsi Gabbard. I think that would get down to maybe 5 points, just barely under the likely margin. I don't think Liz Cheney is going to have a lot of appeal in Chicago. They're going to stay home, and Gabbard could almost make it competitive in Illinois. Michigan, that'll be a lean for Gabbard. Probably mid-single digits, 4 to 6 points. Indiana will be safe for Gabbard. Kentucky, Tennessee, Mississippi, and Alabama, all safe for Gabbard, the Republican. How about down in Florida? That'll be a likely for Gabbard. How about in Georgia? That will be a lean for Gabbard. South Carolina, North Carolina, those are both likely for Gabbard. South Carolina would just barely be under 10 points. North Carolina would be just over 5 points. Again, I could see Liz Cheney doing it slightly better than some other Democrats in a state like South Carolina. But again, many of the margins in the blue cities are going to be reduced for someone like Liz Cheney. Let's go to Ohio. That'll be a likely for Tulsi Gabbard. That's borderline safe. I was on the fence about that. You could make it safe. But again, I think there are some voters that will have some hesitation in a redder state like Ohio to vote for someone who was just recently a Democrat not that long ago. West Virginia, safe for Gabbard. How about up in Maine? At large, that'll be a tilt for Liz Cheney. That bluer 1st district will be a likely for Cheney, while that 2nd district will be safe for Gabbard, and that comes out to a tilt for the Democrat Liz Cheney. I think Liz Cheney is going to have no appeal in that 2nd district and have a limited appeal in that 1st district, but that 1st district is pretty blue. New Hampshire, they're going to go likely for Tulsi Gabbard. They're not going to find Liz Cheney in her past positions and maybe current positions on war to be appealing, and they're going to vote for Tulsi Gabbard pretty comfortably. Vermont is just too blue, and it's hard to imagine it actually lurching far enough back to the right. I'm going to say they would actually still vote for Liz Cheney by a safe margin. Could be wrong. That's what I'm going with. Same in Massachusetts. That'll be safe for Liz Cheney. The Northeast is a blue area. A lot of those people don't like Trump up there. They would probably stick to voting for Cheney, knowing her anti-Trump stance, although the margins would be reduced because Tulsi Gabbard is going to provide a new perspective, and Liz Cheney is not really what those Democrats are actually looking for up there, but I still think they would stick with Cheney. New York, likely for Liz Cheney. Similar story. Margin will be reduced. Gabbard would do a lot better in New York City, but it's hard for me to see it getting down to a lean just yet, but it could be close. Connecticut and Rhode Island will be likely for Liz Cheney. Those could get down to a lean even, but the safe bet is to leave them at likely. How about Pennsylvania? That'll be a lean for Tulsi Gabbard. That is borderline likely even. Tulsi Gabbard would pick up a lot of these rural areas. Liz Cheney is going to still do well in Philadelphia, Bucks County, just at a reduced rate, so Gabbard wins that comfortably. New Jersey, I think that'll get under 10, and that would be a likely for Liz Cheney. That possibly even could get down to a lean. I don't think Cheney's going to have a lot of appeal in New Jersey whatsoever, but given the history of the state, I'm going to have to keep that likely. Delaware, that'll be likely for Liz Cheney, similar to Rhode Island and Connecticut. A little bit too blue for the Republicans to be truly competitive there. How about in Maryland? Well, that'll be a safe for Liz Cheney. I'm not overly confident in this rating, but I still think Liz Cheney is going to do well in this deep blue state. Not by 20 points, probably low single digits. Washington, D.C. will stay safe for Liz Cheney. Sounds weird to say that, but in this scenario, I think it would be safe. And finally, the last state is Virginia. That'll be a likely for Liz Cheney. She is more pro-war, a lot of defense contractors in that area. It's going to stay likely for Liz Cheney. So that would be my map, and that would result in 332 electoral votes for Tulsi Gabbard, the Republican, and 206 for Liz Cheney, the Democrat. A big unknown is how these candidates would craft their campaigns and all the outside spending that would be involved. I'm sure there would be so many smears on both sides. Both of them would be viewed as traitors, rhinos, dinos. Would be an unpleasant campaign. Turnout would be reduced. But in the end, I think Gabbard is going to fire up more people for sure than someone like Liz Cheney. So this was just to have a little bit of fun here. I'm sure you're going to disagree, but let me know, do you actually agree with this map? Let me know down below in the comments. And if you enjoy this channel, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing. Thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next video.